Hello, you, and welcome to takTalks number 17 with Scott Major. takTalks is a place where I, Takaya, get to chat to actors about their lives, about growing up, and all the fun things they've done, and hopefully some great stories come out. Hopefully, it is live, so who knows? Maybe they'll be really boring. Oh well, what can you do? Anyway, today we have an amazing person on the show. He has done an incredible amount, especially in the Australian TV world. You would all know him from Neighbours, I hope, as Lucas, or Heartbreak High, or All Saints, or Always Greener, any of those shows. And he's also stepped behind the camera now and is directing us quite well, I think, pretty well. What do you guys think? Do you think he's doing all right? I think he's doing all right. Anyway, let's welcome Scott Major.
Hey, no pressure. You want interesting stories. You never said at the start that they had to be interesting.
No,
That's
I wasn't saying they had to be. I'm just saying they could be boring too. So, it's whatever comes out because we're live. If they're boring, well,
Yeah, I guess.
Boring stories have to exist for the interesting ones to feel interesting. It's a yin and yang thing.
Yeah.
I guess.
Good. I hope I'm that boring guy.
Well, I've had really interesting ones, so it's bound to happen eventually. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. This is it's a really crazy, silly world where the supermarkets you spray your hands before you go in, and the service station. It's just weird. And there's so many people exercising who've never exercised before in their lives, which I find amusing.
Who are also doing that on Instagram and showing people that they're exercising.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
I saw a meme the other day going, what's happened in isolation is everyone's become a guru or a fitness person. I saw this one person the other day who he's about, 18, 19, and he'd blow away in a stiff breeze giving a fitness video and a workout. And I just went, oh my God, we've come to this.
Oh, look, people are in desperate times and they're trying to do whatever they can to build their profiles and make something of it. I'm doing this, I guess, so what does that make me? Am I the skinny guy of doing this? Is that what I am? Yeah. Well, what have you been doing? Have you been doing some fitness videos on Instagram?
No, I haven't, but I have because I do go to the gym a lot and everything like that. And it was kind of I thought I'd be lost when that got taken away from me. But I found some apps and they're really great. I've done some yoga and I found this was one app that's really pushes me harder than I thought an app could push me. I've been cooking. I've been making sourdough bread. I've made my own dill cucumbers. I'm about to do my olives tomorrow. They're all ready on the tree, ready to do. The yoga.
Explain the olive thing, because in especially around Brunswick and Melbourne, there's olive trees everywhere. Is it a hard thing to turn that into the olives you eat?
Well, look, I saw on Instagram the other day someone giving a very different recipe than what I'm going to be using. But I got it. Chris Capper from work. So I got his grandmother's recipe. Ooh. So what it is, in basic terms, is you pull them all off the tree, you slice them. There's going to be so many people going, that's not how you do it. No, you slice them 3 times, then you put them in a brine, like a salt water, quite a heavily salted, and you change that water every day for 7 days. So you redo the salt and water, empty it out, redo it for 7 days, and then you put it in a mixture of, and I hope I don't get this wrong, then you put a vinegar and salt mixture and seal that up and leave it for 3 months.
And let it just...
And then...
ferment, just let it, whatever it's doing.
Have you ever tried an olive that hasn't been done properly? It's the most disgusting thing in the world. Anyway... if you just eat them off the tree, don't.
I think I actually did try that once.
For you
and I was like, this doesn't taste like an olive. First time I saw an olive tree, I was like, oh wow.
And then you, after that 3-month period, then you save like a third of the bottle of that brine, or no, 2/3. Then you add olive oil and chilies and garlic and whatever the hell you want, and then let it sit there for another couple of weeks, and then they're right to go.
What I always find fascinating about this kind of thing is who did that in the first place? Like, who went, give this a go, 3 months later, let's see what it tastes like.
That's right. Yeah, no, I do wonder about that. But I guess in the old days there was a lot of preserving. So there was a lot of like, because there was no fridges, there was no this, there was no that. So, salting things or, jerkies and all that kind of stuff would have.
People experimented and
but still,
this one worked, I guess.
Well, it's like, I guess winter is coming and what are we going to do without food? So let's just chuck everything in salt and see what it tastes like. That looks like a fruit. Let's salt the bastard.
Like eyelashes in my eye, which is helpful.
You're right.
I think I'll be fine. We'll work it out.
Right, mate.
Anyway, what else have you been up to? You've been making olives.
Making olives, yeah. Working out a lot, which has been good.
Getting the rig.
And getting the rig, yeah. No, I think it's a good sanity thing. And for years and years and years, I've bought equipment and never used it. For like 10 years. And I've only been taking fitness seriously for the last 3 or 4 years.
Basically, after you met me, you were like, I need to take it seriously.
That's right. When I saw all those, those shots of you on the Roman rings, putting yourself up there, and your shirt's off, and they're also beautifully photographed.
It's amazing how that just happened to get captured. It's like.
I know who was there with that camera and that lighting to capture me doing that. Just a little workout by myself. But yeah, I pulled out all my workout gear and I've got like a roller, I've got mats, I've got kettlebells, I've got resistance bands, I've got a TRX thing that goes on the door, I've got all this stuff. Now I've got a lot of room in a cupboard.
Make sure with those things that you attach to doors, because I've seen some videos of people attaching things to their doors and the door just flies into their face. So make sure the door's secured.
Well, you've got to go. You shouldn't go with the way the door opens. You've got to go the other way where there's a door jam.
That's the thing. Everyone out there needs to know this because I've seen so many videos of people hitting themselves in the face. just.
A friend of mine did have. Do you know there was one that was attached to the door? It was attached to the top of the door and the bottom of the door. And you can work out like this, and you can work out like this. You're like there, but it was the rig, and we're all at a party, and we may have had a few lemonades, but it was attached to their front door, and we all had a go, going, oh, we can do it. And there's one girl at the party went, yeah, I can do it. She did it. But then her hands went straight back through the glass front door window, smashed the entire front door.
Oh
God. The party wasn't as happy after that.
Was she all right? Was there any damage on her?
No, it's one of those things. I think all the lemonades had relaxed her and she hadn't cut herself. But she had smashed the entire front door of a rental.
Of a rental.
Which was very amusing.
Hopefully it wasn't like stained glass. So.
Yeah. So.
Well, don't put them up against glass doors. Then I guess is another thing. Do it in the right direction.
Yeah. Don't put them in the way that the door hits you in the face. Don't put them against glass doors. Although I did, even with. So my TRX is on the right way, but there's the thing you can do where you put your hands on the ground, you put your feet in it, and you bring your knees up to your chest, like, sort of, so you're laying forward and you bring your knees up to the chest. I hadn't clipped the door properly, so it wasn't closed, so I did push my feet out and the door opened, and as I pushed it back, my knees went slamming into the floorboards. So I'm an idiot. If only there was someone to capture that like there was in you.
Yeah, that would have been good. I like how we start talking about people who have been on Instagram talking about their fitness routines, and then we just spent like 10 minutes talking about fitness routines.
But it ended with me falling on my knees on the floor.
It's a balance.
But I'm also not doing a video like this.
Well, now you just did it, so.
But the stupidest thing I've done while in isolation, the thing that I should never have done or never have started. In fact, I've only just come up from it about an hour ago.
Yes.
I decided it was a really good idea and a great opportunity to put in underfloor insulation in my 2-bedroom unit. No one's been under this unit since 1975, and that's a fact. I found a manhole in the cupboard, which was only about this wide. So I had to cut some extra floorboards out to make it big enough for me to fit through. The crawl space is only about this big. So I've been under there the last 3 days, but I have to crawl through. And if I get stuck under a beam, I have to dig my way out. And all this compressed earth that's been there since 1975, there's kind of rats' nests that are old rats' nests that I have to push away. There's spider webs going through everywhere. I've got a mask on and a mouth thing.
Good.
And a full hood. Yeah, and all that kind of stuff. But because I'm digging so hard with bits of brick and stuff that I find under there with it, that I get really hot and everything starts sweating up. So then I have to back my way out because I can't turn over and I can't rotate around this way. It's possibly the stupidest thing I have ever done. And today I got under just behind me. I finally dug my way all the way over to this side over here. It's taken me 3 days to dig the tunnel to get me to there. And as I got there, whoever's installed the glass windows in 1975 has just chucked all the offcuts under the house. So now I've got to the point that I got there, but now there's just glass everywhere and shards and really thick shards of glass that I'm dragging my body over. And then I got to that point today and realised that the struts are a different width in that area and I had the wrong size insulation. So I had to crawl backwards out of the area, got stuck under one bit, and then my overall started riding up because I'm sliding backwards. So I'm giving myself a wedgie as I slide backwards to try and then I went down the wrong channel and then lost the exit. But I'm
what I'm
now.
hoping is that all of this effort, like, it works. Like the insulation makes a big difference for you.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to get to the kitchen because when I got there, the kitchen's over there. For those of you who've never been in my house, which I assume most of you haven't. I looked at that and it's like a mound up. Like I'd actually have to. It'd be like tunneling,
full blown tunneling. Not so much fun.
You mentioned before. You said cool, and you thought it was from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yes, well, the imitation that I was going for was Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
No, which is fine because I've been watching heaps of telly, as I'm sure everyone has. But I revisited Community and saw that that's something that Abed does. Cool. So do you think it's a nod from Brooklyn Nine-Nine to Community? Because I looked that up and none of the showrunners or anything are the same, I don't think.
I wouldn't be surprised if Andy Samberg is giving a nod to it, being that he'd probably know everyone from Community, being who he is as well. But I haven't heard that it is a strictly taken thing or a homage or whatever. But as soon as you said it, though, I was like,
messaging?
It is. It is, because then I could immediately hear Abed saying, cool.
Cool.
Yeah, which is, or it could be independent of both of them. Or maybe Andy Samberg heard it and didn't know that he was repeating it. I mean, you know.
It's become a catchphrase for both, really, hasn't it?
Both great shows, really. You should watch both and appreciate both cool.
Cool.
You're like, here's glass, cool.
Yeah. As this is the thing too, because I cleaned up out the back and I cleaned the wood pile out and I found like probably 5 or 6, this is for the English audience, about 5 or 6 quite big redbacks in the backyard, which is just there. And so as I'm climbing through, and I put them all out the front and made them so they're all happy and joyful. But as I'm climbing through, I'm going, there's probably a family. I'm probably going to get bitten. Oh, well, just think about a warm winter. So, because as they say, winter is coming.
Yeah.
So hopefully it works out all right. Hopefully I don't die. Hopefully I make it back to work.
Hopefully, it'd be good.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't sound so
What are you talking
keen
about?
for me to
I was doing
return,
my
mate.
best acting. No, of course we want you back. We all enjoy you.
Hey, I heard you say to Georgie that you watched Bloom.
Yeah,
You've been watching
about
Bloom too.
a few episodes into the second season.
What do you think?
I really enjoy. I'm still open minded about season 2 because I loved season 1, and I'm wanting to see where it goes because there've been some interesting things. There's some cinematography stuff I've noticed where and I'm sure you would have noticed it being if you've watched season 2.
I've watched the whole lot.
Where I've seen they've been doing this thing where to explain it to everyone at home, there's a thing called a reflector which you can there's different kinds, but the one I think they're using has got like a silver or gold backing to it, and so what you do with that is you angle the light towards somebody. And what I've noticed at certain moments, and I don't know whether it's a mistake or whether it's for a purpose, which may be revealed later on, or maybe it's just not necessarily revealed, but something that becomes a thing, was that there's been some waving on faces, I feel, with that reflector. And I've been going, it's weird because
Do you mean moving during the show?
like the levels have been changing on people's faces. And I've been like, that's interesting. I wonder if that's like meant to be a stylized thing that with the people. For people who haven't watched Bloom, Bloom is about a flower bud that makes people young again, and it's all in this one town. And I was wondering whether maybe that effect was something to do with who was being affected by the bloom or something, or whether it was just a pure mistake. Because the first season seemed really seamless in a lot of the production side of things, and that the first season didn't feel like it was like I was watching something,
How many times have you seen it? I didn't notice it. How many times have you seen it?
A few. For time where I started to go, it is a thing. Because like if you see it once, then it passes over you because it's just like maybe like light changes. But after a couple, I was like, wait, this seems to be a thing. And then Amy pointed it out as well. So, and I don't know, maybe it's my TV too that's picking it up, and maybe it's something weird there. Maybe it's not even in the original file. I don't know, but I felt like it seemed obvious. So,
are you watching it? Oh, of course you are, Stan. So, in dramas, which I think we should all be, have you seen The Commons?
No, I haven't yet. Is it good?
Right. It is, but the reason I bring it up is because I've also watched. Have you seen The Last Man on Earth?
I've watched the first 2 seasons, I think. It's another show we started watching.
Yeah, so that's about a virus that kills every human on Earth, and it's The Last Man on Earth. That's not really a spoiler; it's in the title. But
and like the first 5 seconds of the show,
very early episodes. Yeah. So yeah, that's right. But I didn't even know what it was about. I mean, I had an idea of what it was about, but I didn't realize it was about a virus and everything like that. So I watched that during this pandemic lockdown going, whoa. But I watched The Commons, which is about a world in the future during our bushfires. And one of the big things that they used as an art department dressing, I guess, is just had red dirt over everything that was coming from outside and the cities. And during our fires and during our, we had all that rain and everything was red dirt. So I feel that I'm choosing shows that are relevant to what's going on in the world. So I'm a bit scared about starting anything, too big, just in case it happens.
Well, I do this thing by accident on planes. I'll watch shows or movies that have a plane crash in it, and I'm like, why did I do that? That's not a good thing to watch.
How do you mean by accident? You're a very intelligent man who has a lot of knowledge about films.
Well,
I don't believe that you did it by accident.
Well, I think I forget that I'm on a plane and I go, oh, watch this. And then I'm like, oh, or that I didn't know that there was a plane incident in the film, which can happen. And it might not be a major thing in the film, but it's just a moment. And then I'm like, oh, that just reminds me I'm on that. And those things can happen, even though they're safer than cars and blah, blah, blah.
But not the Tom Hanks.
No, I didn't watch, what's it called? Captain...
What's that called?
I don't know. Somebody in the chat will tell us. Anyway, enough of movie chat.
So yeah, gardening, cooking. I've been doing all that stuff that I think every single person in the world's gone, oh, look, I don't have to buy bread. Or, oh, look, I can do this in the garden. It's so funny when you go online trying to find a banner for my sourdough bread. Like there's lots of online stores, all sold out. All sold out. Everyone's just going, yes, I can make bread. But I think it's good. I think it gets us back to, I've been chatting to people via, whatever method, whatever video method you choose, that I have been wanting to catch up with for years. And we've sat down and had like hour-long chats, probably better chats than we would have if we had a caught up in person. And I think what else this pandemic does, or this lockdown does, or whatever you want to say, is people get right to the point. Like, how are you? How are you coping? All the fluff and bullshit goes out the window, and it's sort of like, hey, are you all right? Are you doing okay? And I think it gets to the heart of things a lot quicker, which I think is a really positive
it's a good habit that hopefully everyone picks up during this period. Because it is nice to actually be asking the question, how are you? As opposed to just a greeting of how are you?
Yeah, and not just on one day with, are you okay day or anything like that. Just ringing up and like, especially people who are living by themselves. That must be really hard. I went to the supermarket the other day and looked up, and it's in Hyatt, and there's this whole world of 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom boxes above this shopping centre. And I thought, wow, if you live by yourself in one of those, they say we're all in the same boat, but we're kind of not. We're all in the same situation, but we all have different boats of different sizes. And I really do, feel for people who are either on their own or struggling or don't have a bit of grass,
or four people in a 2-bedroom apartment or something where they've got none of your own space, with kids drawing on all the walls
a newborn screaming for 8 hours a day, or a teething child, or all that kind of stuff. So, so it's good that people are reaching out. Anyway, I think it's a really good thing.
All right, let's get to talking about you and acting and directing and all that kind of stuff, because you started acting quite young, really professionally, definitely. Because it was like you were 15 when you did your first TV role, was it?
14. Yeah, I was 14 actually. Don't rob me of a year, mate. Come on. Which I just fell into.
How does one fall into it?
Well, funny you should ask, Takaya. No, a mate of mine at school, Sam Lukey's, he was a model, and this is when we were in primary school, and he could buy all the best skateboards and all that kind of stuff. So I joined his modelling agency, and for obvious reasons didn't get any modelling work. But then the ABC had a kids show called His Master's Ghost that they're auditioning. And believe it or not, I was a fairly confident young man. So I went in there and was just basically a loudmouth young boy, and they don't look for necessarily acting chops or talent back there, to someone that could have the confidence to get through the role. So after about 5 auditions later, they gave me the role, and then sounds like the end. And then as soon as I walked on set, no, I shouldn't use that voice. No, as soon as I walked on set, I literally just, I thought, this is where I want to be for the rest of my life. And as stupid as that is, and as rewarding as that is, that was the moment. I've been so lucky to know what I've wanted to do my entire life from that young age. I've got, friends who've got kids and all that kind of stuff, who've got kids who are 20, 21, 22, who still just don't know what they want to do, which I've never had that problem, which is great.
So did you have an inkling towards that prior to that moment?
No.
You'd done nothing up until that point.
I'd done drama at school, and I'd done all that kind of stuff, and I liked to be the centre of attention.
Really? Back then?
It's amazing, actually. Since I've been a director, I actually really don't like being the centre of attention. Like, this is fun because it feels like I'm chatting to you.
That's good.
But I shy away from all that shit, as much as I can now. So I had not really done much, or even wanted, or even thought of it as a career path whatsoever. I'd actually wanted to be a mechanic.
Yeah, that's funny.
Most of the characters I've played have all been mechanics. Rivers and Heartbreak High, mechanic. Used to work on motorbikes all the time. Tom in Always Greener was a farmer and worked on cars all the time. Lucas Fitzgerald, mechanic. Yes, it's all the big ones have sort of been mechanics.
Do you remember what specifically about walking onto that set? Was it Was it the people? Was it the feeling? Was it the lights? Was it like, was there a thing, or was it just a feeling about it?
I remember because we were so young, we'd had quite a bit of rehearsal and stuff like that beforehand. And I remember the build up was so big, and then like I got into a makeup chair and people were giving, there's a bit of pampering that goes on, especially as a child, and you had a green room that you were in. But I remember walking to set to do my first ever scene, and one of the other people who was in the show, a guy named David Presser, was walking back from set. I said, "Have you done a scene?" He went, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, how was it?" He said, "Oh, yeah, it was all right." And he'd had a lot more experience than I had and all that kind of stuff. But then I remember walking on and just seeing this hive of activity that everyone's got their own job and they're all doing their own thing. And then you do, obviously you know what it's like. It's this bang, 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 bang. And then when everyone went quiet, it was like woof. I've never seen like 60 or 70 people just go absolutely still, and then everyone just goes whoop onto you. Right, let's go. And I think that adrenaline rush of going, right, now it's up to me. Now I've got to do that. And also the people. I think they're just my people. Film, television people. If I was 14, they treated me like an adult. I think that was also a thing. It's like, I was the youngest. Well, I am the youngest. That was. I think always wanting to, and I was my closest sibling's 4 years older than me. So I think also that want to be treated like an adult while I'm doing a child's job was something I wanted.
Nice. So did you, from that day, were you pretty confident in what you were doing, or was there a period where you're like,
oh, no. God, no. Like, I was shithouse in that thing. Like, I was dead set shocking. In fact, I think my mum, and I think mum's watching. Hi, mum. Hi, Pam. She showed my nieces and nephews my first ever job, and I was like, no, they there's a small chance they might think I'm cool, but if you show them that, there's no chance. But yeah, I went and joined National Theatre in St Kilda, which is they do Saturday morning workshops for kids, and I joined there. It started going there. I went there for like 5 years, every Saturday for like 2 to 3 hours, I think it was, every Saturday. Every other cast member who was in that show, we all tried for this agency, this agency, which is, I won't bother mentioning names, but it was a big agency, acting agency at the time, and everyone else got accepted into that agency but me. The person who ran that agency just said, yeah, I think you should go away and learn how to act.
all right.
I went, okay, way to crush a 14-year-old.
Yep. Cool.
But he was cool. But he was absolutely right, and I've stopped sticking pins in his voodoo doll. And
only last week, but you stopped.
I stopped. That's what this pandemic's been good for, getting rid of all that bad shit. Yeah. But yeah, look, I was lucky enough to work a lot after that. I've been from the age of 14 to like 20, it was pretty consistent for an actor in this country. So yeah, I was, I did Neighbours back in 1993. I did a sitcom in 92. That first job was in 89. Went to air, and then I did a couple of I did finally get a modelling job.
Wow.
Which is for a front cover of a book called "Stop Struggling with Your Teenager." So yeah, managed to get there.
Yeah, you just somehow embodied that. I don't know how.
Yeah, who would have?
So what was the first bigger thing? The thing that like really sort of established you a bit more in the public eye?
Interesting question. So my next big thing, in my opinion, was Late for School, which was shot out at Nunawading,
really?
where we shoot. It was shot in Studio A out at Nunawading with a live studio audience. It was
Nunawading, where we shoot Neighbours, for everyone at home.
Yes. It had Matthew Newton in it, Stephen Curry, Frankie J. Holden, Ross Higgins from Kingswood Country, for those of you who know that, Sarah Chadwick, Melissa Thomas. Like, I thought it was great. It didn't last long on air. Obviously, I was the only one who thought it was kind of great. I think we got 13 or 26 episodes out of it for a sitcom in Australia. Is not bad. So that's what I thought was my next big thing. But after that, it was literally Neighbours. I think I got a 3 or 6 month gig. I can't remember what it was now. Playing Darren Stark, the original Darren Stark. Obviously, that character was played. Everyone who's watching this probably know this. Was played by Todd McDonald when the character.
Is that because
back.
You were on Heartbreak High by that point, or?
No, it's because I thought I was better than Neighbours, I think. Because, I'd done Heartbreak High and, God, I'm just going to go off and do movies now and work in the States and be really famous and that kind of thing, No, look, they did ask me if I'd like to return, but I'd literally just walked off 2.5 or 3 years on Heartbreak High. So it was kind of like, I don't want to go back and do a character I've already done. I prefer to see what else is out there, and I had a good run doing the guest circuit after that. But yeah, I remember when I got asked to audition for Neighbours this time around, it was like, I don't know. Look, I'll do it for a year. I've now been there for 12 and a half, nearly 13 years, I think.
It's a good chunk of time.
Yeah,
it's a good chunk of time. Time disappears there.
How long have you been there?
Coming up to 4 years. Yeah.
4 years.
The time flies.
How long were you?
Because obviously the contract starts as 3 years generally for a full timer, and then the contracts get extended from that point on. And I didn't never imagine myself staying more than 4 years, and now I currently have signed on to do more than 4 years. But how much longer I stay, I don't know yet. Because you do get a thirst for playing other characters, for having different experiences.
But you went off and did Family Law in between.
Yeah, which is great. And that was a show I had before I booked Neighbours. Unfortunately, our producer had got her first job with one of the producers from Family Law, so there was a good friendship there to play on to make sure that I could do the show, which was awesome, and I thank Neighbours a lot for letting me do that, because I love the Family Law as well as a show.
How was that though? How was it after playing, David for so long, to go and play, even though you'd had that character before? How was it to go back into that role? Did you have to get out of, break your David shackles?
I didn't feel like I had to break shackles, but I did love the fact that I felt like I reminded myself that I could act. Because when you're doing Neighbours so much and you're doing the same character, it becomes really second nature, I feel. So there's points where you go, am I just doing me? But then when you go and do a different role, you go, oh no, I am stepping into something when I do that. It just starts to feel so natural that
it's like a second skin. It's like a second part of your person. It's almost like, and it's probably a bad description, but here I go. It's almost like you've got a character when you go see your grandma. Like, it's a very different person. You play a different version of yourself, and you fall into that straight away. Like, oh, hey, Gran, no, I'm great. I don't drink. I don't smoke. Oh, no. But it's the same when you play a character for as long as, 4 years, or you just sort of slip back in. I remember when I came back one time and I was doing a scene with Carla Bonner, who plays Steph. And I had been directing. I hadn't been in front of the camera forever, and I was nervous getting back on set, also because I tell everyone else what to do, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm putting myself in the firing line. What an idiot. And I got in, but as soon as I got on set with Carla, and she hadn't been there for a while either, I think, at the time, we in another place, but because you do it so much every day, in and out, like day in, day out, it is just another part of your personality almost. It is another part of your life that you've led, like a good summer holiday you had or something like that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I always say to people when they say, oh, I can't act, I can't do that. It's like, you act all the time. You act differently to your parents, to your best friend, to your lover, to someone you hate. That's essentially acting. It's just you're doing it with someone else's truth as opposed to your own. And it's your ability to tell that person's truth or empathize for it. And translate it, I guess, for yourself. But people, you adopt characters all the time, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, letting
Yeah.
yeah. That's this constant line. Yeah, but as you said, the difference is that you're getting a script that's telling you how you have to act in this moment. I guess that's why substitution, I think, works so well. So it's like, oh, why am I acting? If I hate this person, right? Who do I hate? That. Great, you're that person. This is easy.
I think also the thing that a lot of actors get stuck on is that the idea of methods and that there's one method for them or whatever, or that there's one method that a teacher's telling them and it should work because it worked for such and such. When it's like, no, that just might not work for you. There's different ways to do the same thing, which is why there's so many methods in the first place and so many teachers.
But ultimately, because I do a bit of teaching too, so I look into it. But ultimately, it's all getting to the same place. So it doesn't matter whether it's Meisner, Stanislavski, method, practical aesthetics, Laban, blah, blah. It's all just trying to connect you with yourself to let it go, to be able to do it. Like they're all got the same outcome. So I love having that argument with people. And I think you should. I think you should go and learn from the most one-eyed person in the world, the person who says there is no other method, there is only this. Like you go, learn from that person. And get rid of all your preconceptions and just go and just do it. And then walk away afterwards and go, okay, what bits work for me in that? I'll take those bits and I'll just keep building my toolbox.
When did the teaching side of things start for you?
Probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
It's a fairly recent.
Yeah, I'd always been directing like plays and short films and all that kind of stuff, and I'd never thought of myself as a teacher because I swear a lot and I'm really I don't like people telling me what to do, and
ironically, being an actor for so long.
That's right. Like I'm a dancing monkey on set, and I guess I just don't want, I don't want people to, in real, like I don't want to teach to a curriculum. I don't want to throw the ball and go, hey, say boo when you catch it, or like all that shit just drives me insane. It's like whiz-bang theatre company stuff. But someone contacted me and said, do you want to teach a workshop? I said, I don't know what I would do, honestly. And then I got in there and I said yes to it because I'd gone from acting to directing, so my wage had halved. I only had a third of what I had before. So I went, yeah, shit, give me some teaching work. And I got in, and then I really enjoyed. I think I enjoyed it. I thought it also helped me with my directing professionally because I'm working with all these up and coming actors or greener actors or fresher actors, and they really, I could see what their blocks were more clearly, and what was holding them back from letting go, I guess. And when I started to identify those more obvious traits in people, then the subtleties of that came through. So when I'm working with an actor professionally or something like that, I can see if the scene's not working for them, what the block may potentially be, or it allowed me to read humans a little bit better. And I kind of liked it. And I love meeting people. I love, we meet a lot of people at work, but it's generally the same people all the time. And also, if you go to teaching and you go to people who are wanting to break into it, your gratitude levels for your job go through the roof. Because you see all these people who are spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on classes, wanting to get that one break, to get that walk-on role on Neighbours, or to get that, just if I can get one little bit, if I can get a guest role on this show, or if I can get a guest role on that show. And these people are good. Like these people eventually, they become really good. And that's all they want. All they want in life is just to have that role. And then you go to work and people are going, oh, do I have to stay for another hour? Or, oh, when do we finish? Oh, I can't believe I've got first scene of the day and last scene of the day. What am I going to do for all that time in between? Which we all do. I'm not paying out on anyone. We all do it because we all get complacent when we've been in a place for too long. It's just human nature. But yeah, teaching makes me every day just go, happy Wednesday. It's great to be here. It's, it's what an enormous privilege I have to be doing the job that I'm doing.
I think it's really nice. And to come back to your acting briefly, because I went and watched the first 2 episodes of Heartbreak High today, because it's on Amazon Prime, if you didn't know. For anyone, I think it's UK as well. You can watch it on Amazon Prime. So I don't know whether you should be getting some residuals because of that. Maybe.
Do you know what? And I'm not gonna play this game here, but none of us have ever received residuals because of the way the contracts were done back then. It plays every year in France over summer in France. It plays in the UK still too, I think. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong. They've released it on 10 Play recently. The episodes that I was in, it's on Amazon Prime.
Wow.
And no one has ever received a residual for it.
That's why actors should be part of their union, I guess, to make sure that...
Well, which I am.
Yeah.
Which I am. And I asked the union, and they said, sorry, the contracts were different back then. And I went, oh, okay, good.
Well,
Thanks.
anyway, I watched the first 2 episodes just to bring up your lack of residuals for it. I feel like I'm bringing up such a painful moment for you. No, not that painful.
That's what an actor needs, more pain.
Sure.
Come on.
I can use this. No, I watched the first 2 episodes. You were playing a pretty, racist and, jerky kind of guy, especially at least those first 2 episodes. Was that just who you were? What was that like stepping into that kind of thing, you know?
It was. I've recently watched some. We had our 25th anniversary recently for Heartbreak High, which I organised a party up in Sydney, and heaps of people came from every generation of the show. It was amazing cast, crew. It was such a... they hired a lot of people who weren't actors, and we talking about drama coaching, we had a guy named Nico Luthouris who was teaching practical aesthetics, and we would turn up at the start of every day, whether you were filming or not. If you weren't filming, you were in the rehearsal room doing intense practical aesthetics, drama, working scenes, screaming, yelling, doing all this, and I think that energy really came across. My character was a sexist, racist, bogan, horrible person at the start, which is what the character was. And I did the film as well, Heartbreak Kid, the film, which was equally like that. And that was supposed to be the antithesis because the show was so multicultural. I was supposed to be the representation, I guess, of what a lot of different cultures had been exposed to growing up. So I accepted the fact that was my role. So I really embodied that in that way. But, I used to get threatened. I was good friends with the whole cast who were Greeks, Italians, and Lebanese, and South American, and Vietnamese, and China. It was... But I remember one time, Sal, Coco, and I... whose birthday it is today? I haven't messaged.
Lucky I asked.
He took me to a place called Brannigan's in Brighton, Les Sands in Sydney, and it was I think it was Italian night. And we walked in there, and I've never walked into a bar like a Wild West saloon before. I walked in there, and everyone, the music didn't stop, but in my head it did. But everyone just turned because my character was so racist and so all these things. But everyone wanted to beat the living hell out of me. But eventually, my character changed. But
How did you deal with those situations?
Really,
because were people confronting you directly?
Yeah, they were. And a lot of the time I was with other cast members who were going, hey, it's a character. He's hanging out with us. Sometimes I'd run.
It's a good tactic.
That's a good tactic. People really couldn't. Even back then, it was only 25 years ago. People really... some people struggle with the difference between character and reality, as you would know. Back then, there was even a bigger, I guess, struggle. Some people really didn't get the difference between that. But yeah, look, I'm proud of that show. If you watch the first 2 episodes, as you have done, no show would get away with that these days. I'm still it was groundbreaking back then, and I think it would still be groundbreaking today if it was put on television.
What I loved about it was, as you mentioned, the diversity in it. I mean, it's actually a really good, true representation of schools in Australia, really, especially because that was based around like sort of Parramatta-ish, I'm guessing, area, and like that felt really true. And I was like, there was something very raw and real about that show, which may have come from the amount of rehearsals you guys are doing and that kind of stuff that then was being put on screen, because it did really feel like this is just a school, but with a few class people, which is why people probably found it hard to separate you as an actor as opposed to being the character too.
Yeah, and do you know on set with us? It's like, everyone shut up, please keep it down. Look, come on, guys, we're trying to make television. The difference with that show was there was a drama coach on set revving everyone up. What were you doing today? Walking around, giving every extra their own storyline with another person in the background. Oh, I've just eaten enough. Woo. And like encouraging you to go bigger. Don't worry about the script. Just go, get in there, get it. And like that created that energy. A lot of people weren't actors originally. So they were just going in there and they were just encouraged to be themselves. So I think that is what gave the show its extra bit of, the rights have been bought by Fremantle.
Really? Oh, that's right. They're doing a return of it or something. I sort of read today that they've got an idea of bringing it back somehow.
Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do, whether they're going to get like the 90210 version, which is get the original cast to come back and talk about their time on the show, or they're going to remake it.
Curious.
But it'd be interesting if they went with all the multicultural and the real rough, like to really show the I suppose the ugly side of schools. That the kids are cruel. That they're not politically correct a lot. That they do do bad things.
But they can learn, as seemingly your character had as well.
Well, I ended up running off with a teacher, so I learned a lot.
Kept learning, even whilst running. Yeah, no, do you think those... How much has that kind of experience informed your directing now? Because obviously you saw how well that worked there. Is that something you try to bring?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. What do you think? Has it influenced my directing?
Well, it's sort of hard to say. It would have to have. It has to have. And
I'm fairly energetic when I direct, and I guess I want to get the person into the moment of what's going on. And look, it's hard. I guess with my directing, I try and give what I a lot of the time never got. And that's not casting aspersions on any directors anywhere that I've ever worked with. But sometimes you just need a little push here or there, or and sometimes you need to be left alone. Anyway, I try and read the situation, and I
well, that's something that I really appreciate in your directing, which is kind of how you described it in how you teach as well, and that, it's all about the outcome, because I do really feel that you assess what actor you're talking to, how to talk to them, and what they might need, and to get that outcome, which is the best way to go about it, because then if you can figure out what language that actor's speaking in terms of their acting, then you fill them with confidence by being able to tell them the right bits of information, because often, or what can happen with some directors and some actors, where they're not speaking the same language as each other, the director's telling that actor to do something, and that actor's thinking that they're trying to do that thing. It's like the Mr. Burns thing, where he's telling what's his assistant's name, Smithers, shave off his sideburns, and Mr. Smithers ends up shaving off like the whole side of his face and up and over, like he's got headphones on. And it's never revealed what Mr. Burns was talking about. But obviously they're speaking a different language, so no matter what Mr. Smithers did, he could never shave off the sideburns because he didn't know what Mr. Burns was talking about. And that can happen sometimes with different directors and different actors who just can't get on that level. But you definitely figure out that language and then try to help the actor in that way, which is I find a very effective way to do it.
Well, yeah. Look, once again, everyone's got their own methods of acting and directing and all that kind of stuff. But for me, if I come in and say, I want you to do it like this, then what I'm doing is I'm putting my vision that I imagined when I read the script onto you and telling you what to do, as opposed to giving you the information of where you've come from and what you want and why, and ask you the question of why you're doing this, as opposed to just being my brain, me going, do it the way I imagined it. Because there's so much beauty and wonderfulness happens when everyone's creative mind comes together and everyone's empowered to explore, even in the 25 minutes we have to shoot a scene. But it sounds like we've got all this time. Be empowered, explore, just do it quickly. But yeah, getting all these creative people together, and we do have a shorthand on names because we have to, but to be able to let something live as opposed to compartmentalize it is, for me, what I love about it. And as you said before, like, every single actor speaks a different language, and that's massively the part of my job, is to know what the actor needs in that moment and who that person is, and also to be able to read when they walk on set how their day's been, and if they can be pushed, if they can't be pushed, if something's happened in the green room, or
whatever it may be.
Like whatever it might be, because we all have lives that are ultimately more important than our jobs.
Yeah.
So
when you started directing, is that how you started directing, or was that something you learnt along the way and figured out?
I think, like, when you start any job, you're kind of shit. And I think, look, I did. The best thing that happened before I started directing was there was another director on the show who's not there anymore and will remain nameless. But anyway, they were a newish director, and they felt that I could see them feeling the pressure. I could see them being a little bit out of their depth, and they started yelling at other crew members like, "What's going on?" or "What?" And then treating the actors like, "Oh, come on, just move. I said move there," or And I was still acting on the show at the time, and they were actually directing me at this time. And rather than get angry with them, I just empathised with them. I went, "Oh my God, that's how I could potentially react in a pressure situation." And then the best thing that ever happened to me after that was reading a quote, I think it was from Sam Mendes or someone like that, who just said, "As a director, everything is your fault. If you don't like the performance, you haven't directed the actors properly. If you don't like the shot, you didn't communicate with the DP properly. If the props aren't right, then you didn't communicate with the arts department properly. If you're running late, it's your fault. You should have done something to change it, even though it doesn't matter if it's raining." And it just freed me. It just absolutely freed me. It's just like, great, there's no one else to blame but myself, so I'll take responsibility. And that became easier. But I think, as I said before, I think it's the teaching that really got me into seeing the real human condition and the fragility and the different personalities and the different blocks, and because you all have high ideals. I'm going to direct and I'm going to be the best because I'm going to do this and that and that. But it's so much different when you get on there and you're like, oh, I have to think of all this at once. Every question that gets asked, I have to answer. Oh, shit balls, this is no fun. And then at the end of the day, when I get in the screening room, it's all my fault. Wow. Who wants this job?
What did I sign up for? Oh, no.
Yeah, I want to go back to acting. That was fun. We could go, piss off. I want.
Knowing all that now, what did get you into directing then? What made you step across?
Well, I got sacked from the job. Like, I got, I didn't get sacked. They wrote my character out. I got sacked. Let's be honest. Which I knew was coming too. Like, we had this story. I had this, Lucas's wife, Lynn Simawada, who's amazing. She got pregnant, and as soon as she got pregnant, I went, "Oh no, we're having a kid. We're so out. This is soap 101. As soon as we have a kid, we're done." And then, actually, our fearless leader now, Jason Herbison, came on with the show as a storyliner and with another person, story producer. No, anyway, I probably said that wrong, and I'll get in trouble while I'm sacked. And came on with another script producer. And we had a little meeting with all the cast. We get in there and they tell us about our future storylines. So they went around the cast and they went, "Oh, so-and-so's doing this and so-and-so's doing that and so-and-so's doing this and Lucas is doing that." And I went, "Oh, yeah, cool. Doesn't sound too long to the future." As soon as that meeting finished, I ran to the producer's office, who was Alan Hardy at the time. I said, "All right, all shit aside, am I getting the sack or what?" He went, No. But you do have the seat next to the door. And I went, right. Thank you. Thank you for being honest. I'm glad I just bought that house.
Seems to be the classic story at Neighbours. Go and buy a house.
If you want to get sacked, go and buy a house. Like, it happens so often.
But on the same token, you can only buy a house when you're on a show like Neighbours as an actor.
That's right. As an actor, absolutely. I got this mystical, magical thing that I've never heard of before. I got something called long service leave for being employed for over 10 years. I rang my brother and sister who, are not in the arts. I was least likely to get that.
That's pretty funny.
But yeah, look, there was a wonderful line producer, Sue Wild, who was working on the show back then when they gave me the bullet, and we were doing director's attachments. And also Tony Osico, who is my mentor and is a wonderful, wonderful director and someone who I got along very well with when I was an actor, but also he would let me direct scenes and little bits and pieces when I was working on the show as an actor. It started off kind of like, oh yeah, what would you do, mate? And I go, oh, this, and this. Then he gave me lots and lots of opportunities. I wouldn't be here without him. He just was amazing. Be here, I'm still in the same place, but you know what I mean. Yeah, but anyway, Sue Wild, they were doing attachment programs and everything with people from outside, and she just said, hey, we keep bringing people from the outside. Do you want to do a director's attachment from the inside? And I went, yes, that would be wonderful. Yeah, I did 6 months worth, I think, with Tony as my mentor director. And then, yeah, I still remember the first time I got my own block without an overseeing director. It was just like, oh my God, are they really going to let me have the keys to the car? They haven't even asked if I can drive.
What was
really.
that like going from being an actor to a director in terms of directing the people you were acting opposite who didn't see you in that light? Like how was it trying to change their mentality towards you and that kind of thing?
Look, I would like to say it was really hard and I struggled and it was a really big transition, but it wasn't. It's such a family out there that every single one of those cast members who was there supported me. They let me make mistakes. They didn't judge me. There was no jealousy. It sounds like the Brady Bunch, but we're all need good names. And the crew were just so good. I remember Andrew Curry, one of our cameramen, Andy coming up to me. I think it was at the end of, before I was just about to do my first studio week as a solo director. And he just came up to me and said, Scotty, we're not going to let you fail, mate. We're just not. And that just filled me so full of joy and love that I just went, okay, I'm here. It's the best place to learn because people are there to catch me if I fall. And they had to catch me lots. And location, all those guys out there, they really looked after me. Everyone, yeah, I couldn't have been luckier. I was part of the family for 5 years already. No one judged or was jealous. They just encouraged and helped me and gave me ideas and made me look good, which they still do today.
Yeah.
I do nothing.
Andy's the cameraman that's on April's social media for everyone at home doing the funny puns. So if you've seen them, he is non-stop with them. And he's quite hilarious with what he's able to find in and around the studio because there's a lot of different props sitting around and he's able to make some incredible puns. So with your directing and your acting, you said that you've liked stepping out of the limelight. Are you finding yourself more comfortable in a director's role than what you were as an actor, or is it just two different things?
It's two totally different things. I still do acting for free, I call it. People ask me to do short films or independent theatre or that kind of stuff, which I think there's a purity to that because no one's there to, I guess, get rich, or they're just doing it for the story. Well, they're not doing it some people are doing it there to get ahead. Anyway, when I first started directing, I hated actors. I thought they were all spoiled little brats, and how dare they work half, this long and do no work, and because I just recently stepped down there and obviously just wanted to be an actor still. And jumped to now, with 7 to 8 years of doing it professionally. I love directing. I love telling the story. I love all the different elements. I love the collaboration with every single person on set. Every single person has something to offer. I love being given a script, because it's all basically your opinion. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole thing. It's like, yeah. So you get the script, and it's just my opinion of that script, my opinion, and I run with that, and we get a lot of, I guess, freedom. And I guess it's freedom at Neighbours, but it's also because everything moves so quick. You can't, the producers can't keep their hands on anything, and they're so wonderful, the producers. But yeah, now I just love like using the sound, using the camera, using the actors, using the whatever's available on that day, and telling that story and pacing an episode to be a certain way. You might say, this story here, you need to give the breath to the audience. It's almost like without sounding like a massive wanker, which I already have. It's like kind of conducting a symphony. Not that I even know what that means, but
it's what you would imagine it would be.
Yeah, it's what I imagine it to be, and that's what I'm going to say. And I recently had the opportunity to work on another show, Playing for Keeps, and also, unfortunately, a show that's got stopped because of COVID-19. So working outside of the Neighbours world as well, and the music, the sound, the footsteps, putting the audience, giving the audience the journey that you want to give them, being in control of that journey, to me is really exhilarating and exciting. And as an actor, you're in control of your journey, and you can come and you give what you give, which I think is a pure, wonderful thing too. And as I said before, I used to think those actors were spoiled brats. It was just my jealousy that made me think that. It's so important that, because you've got so many other things going on, to have that person that comes in and goes, no, this is what it should be, or this is my journey, or that is just part of that symphony, part of that. Without it, you'd be missing the flutes, or you'd be missing you know what I mean? It's such a, I mean, I guess for those people at home, that's all they see is the actors on the screen and their characters. And that's one of them. But there is so much going on, as everyone, I'm sure, understands, so much going on behind the scenes to get those people to where they are. And I just, it's such, when it's good, it's so great. But sometimes you're up against it. You're 2 hours down, it starts raining. Because ultimately, too, as I said before, no matter what happens on set, no matter if someone's an hour late for work, or it pisses down rain, or an actor doesn't turn up, or whatever happens, no matter what, at the end of the day, when you're in that screening room with the producers, none of that matters. It's your fault you didn't get it shot. And even if the script wasn't right, they go, oh, you should have changed that. It's like, but you... You wrote it. You asked me to shoot that. Yeah, well, you should have known better. But I love that. I love that responsibility.
So for you, is your professional future and what you're pursuing mostly directing now? Like,
I at the moment, that's what's happening. I guess I'm just allowing things to take their course. And as I said before, it's all about your opinion. And I think at the moment, people are agreeing with my opinion, producers and so forth. So I'll ride that wave. I still identify as an actor.
You don't have to give up one to be the other, right?
That's right. But I reckon you've got a decade of relevance in a career. You've got about a 10-year window of being relevant, where people don't think you're too old, and also you're not the young whippersnapper. I don't know. So I'm enjoying the ride. I love to act. I would love to do acting. I'd love to do all that. But right now, in this moment, people are liking my opinion of scripts. So I'll ride that wave until they go, wow, you're old school. or wow, you've really taken, you've really pushed the boundaries too far, Scott. David Lynch would freak out at that shit.
Well, I think that would be a good thing, though, wouldn't it? I mean, you don't become David Lynch without rolling someone else over in their grave, do you? So
that's right. That's right. And like, and I do apologise to people who are watching who've seen some of my episodes, and for some of the things that I do just to try and mess with your heads and the camera angles and the ups and the downs. And like, I know I'm messing with you, but you know, if you can't do it on Neighbours, where you can, you do it.
I love the experimenting, and it's also really obvious. Not really obvious, but obvious to, I guess, someone who has been on set with you when it's your episode. It's like, extreme close up. It's a Scotty block.
Or why is that person sitting on that side of the frame? What are they doing? What's he doing? And I don't just do it to have a wank, although as this interview has showed that I love to be a wanker. But,
and expose yourself as a wanker.
And expose myself as a wanker, but not expose myself
no,
as a wank.
That's where the line is crossed.
That I do it to everything I try is to elicit a feeling from the audience, whether it be discombobulation or whether it be that makes me feel uncomfortable, or the whole time I'm trying to not do it for me, but do it to tell.
And experimenting in forms of storytelling as well. And Neighbours is a great place to do that because of the amount of content we get to do. If you did that on your first feature film and you're experimenting and then one of those things goes wrong, then people think that that's your only voice and that's the only way you would have created that, rather than, well, this is my opportunity. It was one of the crew said to me, which I thought was really interesting, where they said the director on a lot of, well, especially on films, as opposed to doing something like this where the directors are working a lot more, on big films, the director's the least experienced person because the whole crew has been working from job to job to job each year, and then the actors probably have been going, hopefully for them, if they're big enough, whatever, going from job to job. And the director's working on their one film maybe for 3 years, but the camera guy's been on set for thousands of hours more probably than the director has. Which,
and I guess that's where you've got to collaborate, doesn't it?
This is the most collaborative art form, you know. It's not a painting where you can paint and whatever, and of course you've got maybe someone who's made the paints for you or whatever, but here it's like every aspect has someone doing a job, especially at a certain level. I mean, at lower levels you're doing everything because you're the only person who's willing to do it for yourself, but you know, when you into the professional realms, it's like there's a person for everything, and then there's someone who's then having to guide them. You don't have a director of a painter going, a little bit more to the left, you know. It's like, that's not really a thing.
No, you don't. And that's ultimately what I love. Have you tried stuff that you wouldn't normally have tried on any other show because of the amount that we do? Like, I've done some stuff that I've gone, I would never get away with that on other shows.
What I do, I think, is I really love that on the show you can just shift genre. So I'll get a scene and go, oh, this one's a bit more sitcom-y. And the energy for me just shifts in how I approach everything. Every little thing that I do becomes... Like, when we did the thing where I rolled off the back of the couch, right? That was sort of a scene where it's like, this is sitcom-y, but... And David would do this in a sitcom. David wouldn't do this in, like, the drama-y stuff on Neighbours. But I love experimenting with that and going, this scene... I kind of do it naturally, go, this scene's more sitcom, and I really love exploring that more and pushing those buttons and trying to get the little comedic moments or whatever in the sitcom moments. So that's probably where I experiment the most and try to get some experience doing that kind of thing, where some people sort of sit more in that world or more in the drama world. I try to float as much as I can, but David's storylines are generally more of the serious nature.
Are they? I guess they are.
Like, the big storylines for David have been like
big story.
He's not like a Kyle or a Sheila where there's bulk amount of like comedic, or not that's been reduced on the show anyway. But a lot of their stuff there's a comedic relief, whereas David, and especially he's more of the straight guy in that comedic role anyway.
Yeah, okay.
It's just there's moments where I see a scene where I go, this is a little bit sitcom-y, where I can be a little bit, just amp up the energy just that little bit. Yeah.
And I think that's what set Neighbours aside and why it's been so popular. And the people on the chat line, if there's anyone there,
They're right. They're all talking.
may agree or disagree. It's what Neighbours has always had, like the Harold or the Lou or the even Max Ramsey, who was the first. Like there's a heightened comedic sort of characters mixed in with the drama. I look at Carl and Susan, with their blue box and all that kind of stuff, which is, and him playing guitar and all that kind of, those sort of in gags, which are kind of more based in sitcom world than they are in drama as such. But that's what's I think what's kept people interested in Neighbours, because if you don't like the drama, you might like the comedy, or vice versa. So you've got something
and you need
to keep you
one
interested.
to balance the other, really. If it's too heavy all the time, then on a show like Neighbours, that's hard to watch like non-stop. It's very draining. It's also gets hard to act because it's very draining doing that for weeks on end. But we've been talking for ages already, and it's been awesome. And I feel like you're another one that needs like multiple parts just to explore different things, because I feel like we've hardly talked about anything, but we've talked about everything as well, which is awesome. Is there anything you want to talk about before we do like get into the chat and stuff?
No, like I have talked so much about myself. I feel like I need to have a shower. I don't do selfies and I don't talk about myself much, and this has made me feel really horrible because I've just realised that we're actually live.
But you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that. Someone texted me. No, I'm kidding. No, I have nothing other than what I wanted to say. So you have questions? No.
Any more questions? Well, I was going to go to look through the chat now and then
right,
and find some questions that we can do like as a quick fire. That anything you might want to answer.
Yeah, but I've got nothing to promote. I've got nothing that I want to promote. I've got nothing apart from thank you everyone for watching Neighbours and keeping us employed. And
I have to say that you shouldn't feel like dirty from talking about yourself, because I find it, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who will also find it and comment on this video saying that of how interesting it is and how much there is to learn from that. Because sharing that that's our job as storytellers. We're sharing history. His story it's in the title. And sharing these experiences, who knows, there might be the next Scott Major sitting out there watching this and something clicks for them,
Oh, God forbid.
Would you do a Heartbreak High reunion? Would you do if Fremantle?
I would love to. I'd put my hat in the ring 100%. Let me direct the bastard. Let me act in it. Or let me be a teacher with a big beard. This is kind of just isolation beard, by the way.
Well, it comes out every now and then, though. You let it. It's amazing, though.
Oh, that's right. The photo, just so you know, the photo that you used to promote this thing, if anyone saw that, the reason for that outfit with the snake is I like to do dress-up days on set, and that was Horror Film Friday. And I came as the guy from Wolf Creek.
And someone actually commented
I shaved the beard
it looked like Wolf Creek. So, you nailed it in that sense. We've already talked about that. Is Playing for Keeps still going?
I don't believe it has been renewed. There was 2 seasons of 8 episodes. You can still catch it on 10 Play.
There's your plug. You got to plug in.
Yeah, there you got a plug. Watch that show. It's great. But no, I'm not sure if it's going again.
Without explanation, who's been the cheekiest cast member on Neighbours? I added the without explanation.
That's a really hard question because everyone's cheeky in their own way. Alan Fletcher, absolutely, is just constantly trying to direct the scene in a sneaky way. How about just a suggestion? Maybe I should. What do you think if I? And I hope you watch it.
We mentioned this in his chat. We're talking about how everyone thinks. We also said that people then, like Tony says, when I come on, he's like, Alan Fletcher's here because he says I drink. Yeah.
Oh, really? Just a thought. Hey, Scotty, just a thought. Oh, yes, we're running half an hour down. We're in the hospital. We've been here for 12 scenes in a row, but sure, what's your thought? And once again, I love those guys. So, yes, quickly off the cuff, Alan Fletcher is cheeky.
We film 3 months in advance, roughly, is the answer to the question. I don't need to ask you that. I can just answer it myself.
Well, at the moment, that's right.
You might not know the answer to this, but how do producers decide which director directs which block?
It's just a rotation. Where there's 4 now rotational directors, I think, who just rotate through. So it takes 5.2 weeks to get the 6 episodes for a director's rotation. And then there's 2 guest spots that come up, which is kind of all changing in the new world. But I think, yes, sometimes there might be a big episode that a newer director might be given, and they might swap that out for someone who's had more experience, just for everyone's sake. That's my thoughts.
Oh, I just lost the question. Oh, yeah. Who's been your inspiration or your mentors along the way?
Well, Tony Osaka, absolutely, 100%. But look, like there's Chris Ad said, there's Chris Langman, Gary Conway, God rest him. Anyone who's been doing it, and like you can get something from everyone. Everyone gives you a little piece. I remember Langers once told me, we shoot so many scenes, but you get, one opportunity a scene or one opportunity an episode to put your mark on it, even in this fast pace. It was like, yeah, great, that's great. And then there's Gary Conway goes, just keep it simple, get it shot, and work with the actors, or make that. And it's like, great. Sometimes it calls for that. It's like the acting methods we talked about before. Everyone has their own method, and I just pick the best bits that I like out of all of them, and plagiarize them and call it my own.
Scott could do a birthday message as well as birthday shout out. Happy birthday! Happy birthday, everybody! But the Walrus, you're always here, so you definitely get a happy birthday. Endgame, what was that like directing?
I loved it. That was intense. That was crazy. We had the screening of all 5 episodes at the Hoyt Cinema. And when it all finished, I went for a lemonade with some of the cast and crew, and Adam Knoll, who first did it all for me, leans over my shoulder and goes, "Not bad for 11 days, really, was it?" And I was like, "Oh my God, that's right. We shot that thing in 11 days. That is just stupid." I had the best fun on that. It was, I think, Tony Gardner, who was the DP on that. We sort of, I think he said it was the hardest and most rewarding thing he's done, as far as we just were shooting from the hip the whole time. The cast were in it 100%. The crew were in it 100%. We were literally shooting scenes that should have had 3 hours to shoot in an hour and a half on soft sand at the beach, throwing a cast member out into the water and smashing them over the head with a rock, and then, the crew had to stretcher all the gear, like literally on stretchers, down 7 flights of stairs through soft sand as a windstorm came up, and and the seaweed that had never been on the beach, which was 30 centimeters high, and anyway, it was so great. And
it's a real thing I find with creatives, not even just actors and stuff, but the harder it is, and at the time it feels really hard, afterwards it just feels so good. It's crazy. Like you're describing it with a smile is there's something wrong with us, I feel, to be able to process something that way.
It was. I suppose when you have, it's a war of attrition if you win that war.
Yeah. Have they been your favorite episodes to direct because of that?
I don't have a favorite. No, look, I loved jumping Lavorni and Trav over a building. I loved that stuff. Shutting a street in Melbourne with big cables and that was real fun too. But yeah, like I get something out of every scene. But yeah, the stuff that's the hardest, and it's outside of the world of Neighbours, I guess, because I've been in that world for so long. So anything that really pushes the boundaries outside. I think my first wedding was always pretty. I was always pretty happy with getting to direct the wedding on Neighbours. done a few now. I
Yeah,
think.
it's like one of the boxes
But,
you want to tick. It's like wedding.
That's right. You've had a
funeral,
wedding.
and-
You've had a wedding.
Someone asked if I would try my hand at directing a Neighbours episode. Possibly. I wouldn't turn it down. And directing something that it's always been in my...
You're talking.
Like I went to film school. But as far as like my actor brain, or why I've focused on acting for now, has been that I've always felt that all the ideas and stories I have in me as a director and writer, I guess, I can tell those stories later without sacrificing things. But as an actor, I can't be this age later. So the roles that are here for me now that I'm getting to do, I can do now. It doesn't necessarily, it shouldn't stop me working on those other things. And most of the time, well, it has a bit, but they're always churning away, I guess. But my focus has been acting, and that's sort of been my reason, which if you boil it down becomes, well, ultimately that's what I'm more wanting to do right now anyway. But I do like directing. I do like all the things that you're talking about in terms of all the little bits, the symphony sort of stuff. I love it, but hate it at the same time, because there's a torture to the perfectionist in me who wants everything to end up the way, which can be the worst way to try to do it. Like you were saying, you kind of have to let things exist, especially when you're at the professional level where you have people doing it whose professions are that thing. You can't be a micromanager at that point.
Yeah. But it's so hard in this industry. I mean, I guess if you're working as an actor, then work as an actor. If you're working as a director, then bloody work as a director. It's kind of, it's just good to have another string to your bow. But the way you're talking and the way you've been, the way you look at things, and I think directing is definitely in your future.
Thank you, mate.
Oh.
What else have we got here? We'll do a couple more. It's good when it jumps around. Do you reckon Lucas is going to pop back in?
I keep begging them to. I keep pitching it to the story room. I've got multiple story I pitch for them, but they're not buying it. In fact, sometimes I say, Shane, and we go, no, Scott, or like they just know now. No.
See, what you need
Scott.
to do is
pitch
just steal one of the costumes, right? And then when you're directing blocks, just be in the background. And so Lucas is still around. What's he doing? And then everyone start asking about it, and then
yeah. Like I'd love to come back on and just a year of being Lucas again, or 6 months, just for fun,
just to not be having to do all of the directing stuff and just be the actor.
Yeah, just to come on. The couple of times I've come back to act on the show or do other things, I find it so freeing just to have one job. I think it will ultimately make me a better actor.
And I think from the looks of it, that's about all the questions we have, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on takTalks.
Mate, thank you for having me. I was so great. So awesome.
Well, thank you, mate.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching. If you made it for the hour and 26 minutes,
we
done.
may break the record. We've got an hour and 29 is the longest one so far. So depends how long I talk now introducing tomorrow's guest. But thank you, mate. That was brilliant, and I'm sure I'll have you on again because there's heaps more we can keep talking about. So
Yeah.
And thank you at home for joining me and Scott. I could talk to Scott for a very long time about a great many things, and I reckon people would be interested because he's really good at talking about stuff, I guess. But if you've liked this, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and stuff with alerts so that you know when the next one's on. And speaking of the next one, I get to announce now, this is the fun bit, tomorrow's guest, and we're staying, I guess, in not that really Scott's a blast from the past because he's still around, but it's someone who you may not expect, Saskia Hampel, which I've actually never heard her say her last name. Scott could probably tell me if I'm saying that wrong. But she will be on tomorrow, which I'm super excited about. I actually worked with her husband on an ABC3 show, the first presenting role I did, and he taught me a hell of a lot. And fun fact, before I started on Neighbours, I had a video call with her. I hadn't met her yet. Kane introduced us, her husband, and she gave me the ins and outs of what's it like shooting on Neighbours. So when I stepped on, I could feel a little bit more confident about what I was doing. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one. We'll be able to talk about her role on Neighbours, how she got there, and also what she's been doing since. And she's been doing some fun stuff. So make sure you tune in for that. But apart from that, I'm going to say bye.